From Jack Tatum's rough tackles to Dick Butkus's wild biting on the field, the NFL has seen its fair share of crazy. So here are the scariest players in NFL history. And of course, we have to start with one of the dirtiest players in the league, James Harrison. This American player was one of the league's most aggressive linebackers at his peak, but throughout his career, he never really had a reputation for being a very approachable guy. Pickwise voted for him as the most frightening man on the field in 2021. So don't let his short height and lean figure confuse you, because he more than made up for it during matches. Given how incredibly strong the Pittsburgh Steelers roster was back then, Harrison's stats are even more amazing. His franchise record for sacks is insane and just shows how driven he was. His 17 sacks during the 2008 season and his 100-yard pick six in the Super Bowl 31 victory are the biggest reason he's on this list.
Harrison is going to go all the way and waiting for the official to get there. Touchdown is signaled.
He ended up racking up over $100,000 in fines, and other players still thought that wasn't enough for his rough playing time. I mean, just ask Mohamed Massaquoi and Josh Cribbs, who he eliminated in the same game.
Morgan Cox is the long snapper, 46. The second hit that comes in, though, is the one that knocks the helmet off.
Harris ended up getting a $75,000 fine for his move on Mohamed, but the hit on Cribbs was legal at that time. But it still didn't make it a pretty sight. Even then, the next athlete on our list was on a different level altogether. Ray Lewis was a fierce opponent on the field and a member of 2 Baltimore Ravens Super Bowl winning teams. And honestly, his accomplishments speak for themselves. He was one of just 4 linebackers to earn the Super Bowl 35 MVP award and holds the record for most combined and solo tackles. He's one of the few players to have made a Pro Bowl appearance in 3 distinct decades. Plus, his sustained level of domination was unlike anything the league had ever seen from a linebacker position. Nobody could beat his intensity on the field, as he played like every snap might be his last. Lewis was a loud person on the field and made sure both his teammates and opponents knew when he was playing. His energetic presence was so threatening to his rivals that you could tell he'd get under their skin, and it is this energy that made him so terrifying in the league. Even the most talented offensive players struggled to hold their own against him, and we rarely got to see him lose. In the early 2000s, the Ravens' defense rose to become one of the most feared groups in league history thanks to the 13-time Pro Bowler. So while Lewis may not have looked like every other linebacker in history, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference from the way he played. He kept everyone on their toes, especially pass catchers. But he wasn't the only defensive NFL player to terrify his opposition. Of course, I'm talking about the one and only Jack Tatum. Tatum was such a force for the Raiders' defense that his brutal style of play earned him the nickname of the Assassin. And even though he was just 5'10", Tatum played like he was 7'11", forcing receivers to stay alert whenever they went over the middle. The 3-time Pro Bowler loved his reputation in the sport. He claimed in his autobiography, "They Call Me Assassin," that he thought some of his best hits border on criminal assault. And he isn't wrong about that. In his first game in the NFL, Tatum defeated 2 opponents. He once hit Darryl Stingley so hard that he became paralyzed. And although it was brutal, the hit was clean, especially for a preseason game that didn't matter. Even the Patriots' then coach, Chuck Fairbanks, said that he couldn't see anything wrong or shady about it, while Tatum supporters said it was just an unfortunate accident. Many people criticized him for not being sincere enough in his reaction to Stingley's injury. Tatum believed he had nothing to apologize for because he was doing his job of playing football. He tried to play it off by saying that injuries come with the job, but from that moment on, he was the last person you wanted to see across the center of the field. And Tatum's reign of terror didn't stop there. He ended up destroying defensive back Sammy White, the wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings, in Super Bowl 11. So while he never joined the Hall of Fame, Jack Youngblood's case was the complete opposite. His intimidation starts with his last name and ends with him playing 3 professional matches on a badly injured foot. While it does sound insane, it is true. Since he competed in the 1979 Super Bowl, NFC Championship, and Pro Bowl, with a broken leg. The defensive end of the Los Angeles Rams was simply unstoppable on the field. No one in their right mind would even think of doing that these days. This just goes to show how passionate he was about his sport. The defender played in 201 straight games and only missed one in his whole 14-year career despite multiple other injuries. Anyone ready to suffer pain to that degree is one terrifying person. He won the Dan Reeves Award, which is given to the team's most valuable player each season, 3 times as the defensive captain of the Rams. Not only that, but he was also named All-Pro and All-NFC 7 times between 1974 and 1979. And from 1973 to 79, he participated in 7 consecutive Pro Bowls after each season. But my favorite moment from his career came in the 1975 postseason game against the St. Louis Cardinals. Because the intensity with which he played on the field was unmatched, he had 1 tackle for loss, caused a fumble, stopped an extra point attempt, and returned an interception 47 yards for a score. Talk about carrying a team. But the next player on our list gives him a run for his money, because nobody could intimidate opponents like Chicago's famous middle linebacker, Dick Butkus. According to reports, he had a canine snarl between plays and liked to bite opponents during plays. He was one of the most feared tacklers in league history and made it his goal to punish ball carriers on every snap. So if you thought his canine-like tendencies were bad, they were only the beginning. They advised players from the opposing team to be careful when talking about Butkus and Chicago in interviews, since you could never tell when he was about to go feral. Alty Taylor, a running back for the Lions, had to find that out the hard way during their second meeting in 1969. He ended up criticizing Butkus after their first game and had to return to the stands to avoid a confrontation with the linebacker. Butkus was one of the greatest and fiercest athletes in NFL history. But the title of the scariest player has to go to Lawrence Taylor. Taylor ended up winning the Defensive Player of the Year award in his rookie season, showing how quickly he rose to become one of the league's top pass rushers. And the 10-time Pro Bowler didn't stop there. He revolutionized the outside linebacker position and changed how offenses plan for exceptional edge threats. But while he was an amazing defensive player, he was also the scariest player in the league. And the biggest reason for that was his lightning-quick get-off, which gave offensive linemen nightmares. He enjoyed playing psychological games with his opponents. He could even tell if a play would end in a handoff by their nervousness. Taylor was a terror on the field. Well, there you have it. These were the scariest players in the NFL.